There's a landscape within the human mind that few dare to explore. It's a place of immense power, yes, but also of a deep, unsettling darkness. As a society, we celebrate the brilliant mind, the high IQ individual who solves incredible complexities and sees patterns where others just see chaos. We see them as gifted, right? Destined for greatness. But that's a dangerously incomplete picture, isn't it? It's really just a persona, a mask worn for the world, because beneath it, many of the brightest minds are tormented by psychological struggles they just can't outsmart. Trapped, really, in a psychological minefield they built themselves. What if the very intellect we celebrate is also the architect of its own prison? Society, well, it sees the light of high intelligence, but through the lens of the great Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, we can see a hidden truth. The mind that makes someone brilliant can also become their most formidable enemy. Jung, he understood that with great consciousness comes a great shadow, and for the highly intelligent, this shadow, it can actually grow denser, leading to profound loneliness, self-sabotage, and a gnawing existential dread that logic simply can't make go away. This is the dark psychology of high IQ people, the story of a mind at war with itself. It's a conflict born not from weakness, but from a strength so profound. It casts an equally profound shadow. Carl Jung believed, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. For any intelligent person who feels misunderstood and isolated, this journey into the darkness is the necessary path to becoming whole. Gifted with an intellect that can solve immense complexities, many of the brightest people find themselves tormented by struggles they simply can't outsmart. Society celebrates high IQ, but the work of Carl Jung reveals a hidden truth. The very mind that makes them brilliant can also become their greatest enemy, leading to deep loneliness and self-sabotage. Now, in this video, we'll explore a few things. First, why do highly intelligent individuals so often feel a deep sense of alienation? Then, what is Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self, and how can it become a source of self-destruction? And finally, what's the path to integrating this hidden side of your personality to find wholeness? The world sees the summit, but it doesn't feel the solitude of the peak. For a high IQ person, life is a paradox. On one hand, there's the advantage of a quick, agile mind. They learn effortlessly and possess an analytical power that cuts right through the noise. This often leads to success and the outward appearance of a life filled with control. They're the problem solvers, the strategists, always expected to have all the answers. But behind this facade, a different reality, it unfolds, marked by a quiet hum of alienation. It's the feeling of being an observer rather than a participant. Like a translator in a world speaking a totally different language. Conversations can feel, superficial. And social gatherings, they become complex algorithms to navigate. It can be really hard, too, to find peers who match their intellectual frequency. And that often leads to a preference for solitude over those more shallow connections. This isn't arrogance, no. It's more like the desperation of a mind that just craves depth. In a world that, often prizes the surface, this intellectual loneliness, it's one of the most painful struggles of the highly intelligent. It's a feeling of being fundamentally misunderstood, of having an inner world so rich it's nearly impossible to share. You see extra layers of meaning. You analyze potential consequences. You wrestle with existential questions others seem unaware of. When you try to articulate these thoughts, you're often met with blank stares, those subtle cues that tell you to retreat into your mind. Over time, you learn to downplay your insights, to, camouflage your true intellectual nature simply to fit in. And this, This creates a painful split. There's the public persona, the competent, edited version of you, and then the private self, who lives in a vast internal landscape few are invited to visit. This gap, that's the birthplace of imposter syndrome. Despite external accomplishments, many live with a fear that they're a fraud. This feeling, you see, it comes from the disconnect between the self they present and their authentic self. Praise feels hollow because it's for the mask, not, the person behind it. The gifted mind is often so used to succeeding that it may never develop resilience. When faced with a genuine failure, the experience can be shattering because it challenges their core identity of being smart. This can lead to a paralyzing perfectionism, where the fear of creating something flawed prevents them from creating anything at all. The intelligent mind can envision an ideal outcome with such clarity that anything less feels like a total failure, leading to chronic procrastination and self-sabotage. This is the paradox of brilliance, a mind powerful enough to grasp the universe, yet often unable to navigate its own inner world. The suffering of an intelligent person is often invisible, even to themselves. They are masters of rationalization, capable of explaining away their own unhappiness. They might conclude their loneliness is an unavoidable side effect of their rarity, or their anxiety is a logical response to the world's problems. But these are sophisticated defense mechanisms. The problem isn't just that they're different, it's that they've been forced to disown a fundamental part of who they are. From a young age, the gifted person learns their mind sets them apart. Their intense curiosity can be seen as challenging authority. Their advanced vocabulary can be labeled as showing off. Their heightened sensitivity might be dismissed as too much. In response, a process of adaptation begins. They learn to suppress their inconvenient questions and hide the full force of their perceptive abilities. This creates an immense, unseen burden. There's the constant pressure of expectation. Because they're the smart one, they're expected to be infallible. Mistakes aren't just mistakes, no. They're a betrayal of their core identity. This pressure, it fosters a debilitating perfectionism, where any endeavor is judged against an impossible standard. And the result? Well, it's often a paradoxical paralysis, a fear of failure so profound that it leads to inaction. Now, this internal pressure, it's compounded by social alienation. Highly intelligent people often experience what we call asynchronous development. That's where their cognitive abilities far outpace their emotional maturity. So, they might have the intellect of a 40-year-old at age 20, but the emotional tools of someone much, much younger. And this makes it really difficult, to form genuine connections. The resulting loneliness isn't just a lack of company, no, it's a lack of resonance, a feeling that no one understands the world the way they do. This constant feeling of being out of sync can lead to hypervigilance and anxiety. Their pattern-detecting minds go into overdrive, analyzing social interactions and ruminating on potential negative outcomes. This overthinking, well, it becomes a feedback loop, you see. The more they analyze, the more anxious they become, and the more they retreat into their analytical mind for control, isolating themselves further. Some research has even suggested a link between high IQ and a disposition toward mood disorders and anxiety. Their heightened awareness, it can really be a double-edged sword, providing deep insight, but also an overwhelming sensitivity to the world's pain. But here's the thing, the most insidious part of this burden is how it's rationalized. The high IQ person might even take a strange pride in their misery, seeing it as proof of, superior perception. They'll often say something like, "Of course I'm anxious. I see the world for what it really is." But this is a trap. The pain they feel, it doesn't actually stem from their intelligence itself. No, it stems from the fragmentation of their personality. From those parts of themselves they've been taught to reject and hide away. when your intellect fails to solve the riddle of your own unhappiness, you reach a turning point. Logic admits its limits. Analysis reveals only the mechanics of the cage, not the key. In this space of intellectual humility, we can explore a different kind of knowledge, a wisdom of the soul. And there's no better guide for this journey than, well, Carl Gustav Jung. Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist, broke from Freud to form analytical psychology. He was captivated by the collective unconscious, the inherited reservoir of human experience. He believed modern humanity's greatest ailment was its disconnection from the deeper, instinctual parts of its own nature. For Jung, the goal of life wasn't perfection, but wholeness. This process, individuation, is the journey of integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of our personality. True psychological health depended on a dialogue between the ego, our conscious self, and the vast unknown unconscious. The first step on this journey is a confrontation with a figure he named the shadow. While Jung didn't focus on high IQ people, his work offers a profound lens for their struggles. He knew that a highly developed conscious mind doesn't eliminate primitive parts of the psyche, it just represses them more effectively. He wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The highly intelligent, who pride themselves on rationality, are at risk of a very dense shadow. And this is the turning point, the realization that you can't think your way out of a problem that you've thought your way into. It's the acceptance that another part of you, a part that doesn't speak the language of logic, has been trying to get your attention through anxiety, depression, and loneliness." Jung called this part the shadow. What is the shadow? In Jung's words, it is the thing a person has no wish to be. It's the cellar of your personality, where you store every aspect of yourself that you've repressed or disowned. It holds all the traits and emotions deemed unacceptable by your family, your culture, and even your own conscious ego. It contains your rage, envy, greed, and unacceptable desires. Essentially everything about yourself you're ashamed of. The shadow forms in childhood as we learn which parts of our authentic self are rewarded and which are punished. If a child's assertiveness is labeled, bossy for instance, assertiveness might be pushed into the shadow. For the highly intelligent child, this can be acute. Their complex ideas might be dismissed as weird, their passion as too much. So a significant part of their natural self is deemed unfit and pushed down into the unconscious. But what is repressed? It doesn't just disappear, it stays active, influencing our behavior from the shadows and ultimately sabotaging our best intentions. As Jung himself stated, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is the very essence of the shadow's power. When we're unaware of it, we are, in fact, controlled by it. Now, for the high IQ individual, this is particularly volatile. Their conscious ego is often highly rational and principled, and this creates a massive tension with their repressed shadow. The harder the ego works to maintain its image of perfection, the more pressure builds in the unconscious. This, then, is the engine of self-sabotage, as the shadow acts out to get attention. So let's look at how the shadow actually manifests. The loneliness of the gifted person. It's a deep internal alienation. It's caused, really, by the split between their conscious persona and their shadow. Now, that persona, well, that's the polished mask they show the world. But the shadow? That contains all the messy human parts. Things like vulnerabilities, irrational fears, and those unacceptable emotions they keep hidden. And because they've disowned these parts, they just can't show them to others. Which, of course, makes true intimacy impossible for them. The result, unfortunately, is often feeling like a perpetual outsider. They're simply unable to form deep, authentic bonds. Let's explore the shadow and self-sabotage. This is a destructive manifestation. A person who's repressed their aggression, for instance, might engage in passive-aggressive behaviors that ruin relationships. Or, consider someone who's disowned their need for rest. They might procrastinate endlessly, their shadow manufacturing lethargy to counter the ego's drive. The perfectionist who never finishes their masterpiece, often they're driven by a shadow fear of their own mediocrity. These aren't logical failures, you see. They're unconscious rebellions. The shadow denied a legitimate place in your life will always find an illegitimate one. Now let's turn to the shadow and existential dread. The shadow, you see, holds those raw, uncomfortable truths our conscious mind so often avoids. Our mortality, our capacity for evil, the sheer chaos of existence itself. Our intelligent mind, it creates elegant systems to try and keep this dread at bay. But the shadow, well, the shadow knows better. It holds the primal terror of existence. And when unintegrated, this dread simply leaks out as a constant, low-grade anxiety, a feeling of impending doom, or that unsettling sense that everything is just pointless. One of the most powerful ways to identify your shadow is through projection. Jung realized that the qualities in others that infuriate us are often disowned aspects of our own shadow. That arrogant person you can't stand, they may be embodying the confidence you were taught to repress. That lazy relative who drives you crazy, they might represent the part of you that's desperate for rest. A disproportionately strong emotional reaction to someone is likely a mirror of your own shadow. Everything that irritates us about others, Jung wrote, can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This confrontation with the shadow is the central task. It requires what Jung called considerable moral effort, because it means recognizing the dark aspects of your personality as real. It means admitting you're not just the noble hero of your own story, you're also the villain. For the ego of a highly intelligent person, this can feel like an unbearable defeat. But for the soul, it's the beginning of liberation. The journey into the shadow isn't a descent into misery, it's a recovery mission. Jung was adamant that the shadow, while holding our darkest impulses, is not purely evil. He wrote that it also contains good qualities, such as normal instincts, appropriate reactions, realistic insights, creative impulses. In our rush to be good, we cast away vital and positive aspects of our true nature. This is what Jungian analysts call the gold in the shadow. Now imagine this: to be seen as a good child, you suppressed your righteous anger, and locked away with that negative anger is also your capacity for setting firm boundaries and your passion for justice. Or, imagine you were shamed for your wild, creative thinking. Well, repressed along with that, unproductive, daydreaming is the source of your greatest innovative potential. The shadow holds our disowned creativity, vitality, and power. Integrating the shadow is the process of reclaiming this lost treasure, and the benefits are truly profound. First off, you'll experience increased authenticity and energy. Think about it. When you stop spending energy holding down your shadow, that energy suddenly becomes available to you. This significantly reduces internal conflict, leading to a profound sense of authenticity. You no longer feel like a house divided. As Jung so aptly put it, integrating the shadow gives a man body, truly grounding you in your full being. Next up, you'll see improved relationships. You see, shadow work is really the antidote to projection. Once you own your quote-unquote dark traits, well, you're just no longer compelled to judge them in others. And this, of course, leads to much greater compassion and far more honest relationships, because you're no longer interacting through a distorted lens. Finally, expect enhanced creativity and problem-solving abilities. The shadow, you see, is the realm of the instinctual and the non-rational. And for the high IQ individual who often relies heavily on logic, well, this is truly fertile ground. By connecting with the shadow, you're able to tap into a more intuitive, a more symbolic way of knowing, one that can really break through those creative blocks. Confronting your own capacity for darkness is profoundly humbling. It shatters the ego's illusion of righteousness. You understand that the line between good and evil runs through every human heart, including your own. And this is the beginning of true wisdom. Then there's personal power and courage. Hidden in the shadow is our disowned power, the power to say no or to be assertive. Integrating your aggressive shadow doesn't mean you become violent. No, it means you can use that energy constructively to protect your boundaries. Integrating the shadow isn't about unleashing a monster. It's about befriending the dragon and learning to ride it. The goal, you see, isn't to eliminate the shadow. That's impossible. No. The goal is to bring its contents into the light of consciousness, sort through them, and integrate the gold back into your personality. It's the journey from being a good person to being a whole person. How do you begin integrating the shadow? Jung described it as a process like diplomacy, an ongoing negotiation with a powerful, hidden part of yourself. This isn't a self-improvement hack, it's a lifelong practice, but they're core principles to guide you. First, the foundation, radical self-honesty. The very first step is to accept that the shadow exists within you. This requires abandoning the comfort of your idealized self-image. You must be willing to look at the ugliest parts of yourself without flinching. Next, pay attention to projections. You see, your shadow is most easily seen in the mirror of other people. So pay really close attention to your strong emotional reactions. When you judge someone harshly, ask yourself this: what trait in this person is triggering me? Is there a small, unacknowledged part of me that is like this? Keeping a projection journal can be a powerful tool for self-discovery. Number 3, listen to the language of the unconscious. The shadow speaks in symbols, images, and emotions. And there are 2 really powerful ways to listen: through dreams and active imagination. First, dream analysis. Jung saw dreams as direct communications from the unconscious. Frightening or strange figures are often, personifications of our shadow. So ask yourself, what does this dark figure represent? What part of me is this? And then there's active imagination. This Jungian technique involves actively engaging with figures from your unconscious while you're awake. You can enter into a dialogue with these figures, asking questions and treating them as real separate parts of you. It's a direct way to negotiate with your shadow. Practice self-compassion and patience. This work, it's really not easy. Confronting the shadow, it can absolutely bring up intense shame and guilt. So it's essential to approach this whole process with self-compassion. Remember, the shadow is a universal part of being human. The goal isn't to punish yourself for your darkness, it's to understand it. And for many, this journey is often best undertaken with a guide, like a therapist trained in Jungian or depth psychology. The path of integration is the path of the spiritual warrior. It's the choice to turn inward and face your own demons, rather than projecting them onto the world. For the highly intelligent person, it's a journey into the heart of what it truly means to be not just brilliant, but human. This journey into the self is personal, but it doesn't have to be lonely. The experiences we've talked about, things like alienation, self-sabotage, and confrontation with the shadow, they're deeply individual yet universally human. So, what part of this exploration resonated with you the most? Have you ever caught a glimpse of your own shadow? Share your reflections in the comments below. Your insight might be the one that helps someone else feel a little less alone on their own path. And if this exploration of the deeper psyche is something you value, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe. We began with a paradox, that the brightest minds are often home to the darkest struggles. Guided by the wisdom of Carl Jung, we've seen how the gift of high intelligence can cast a long and dense shadow, one that, when left unacknowledged, can poison a life with loneliness, self-sabotage, and despair. We've learned that this shadow isn't an enemy to be vanquished, but a disowned part of ourselves crying out for recognition. It's the locked cellar of our psyche, and while it holds our deepest shames, it also holds the hidden gold, our lost creativity, our repressed vitality, and our authentic power. The work of confronting the shadow is the most difficult and rewarding work a human can do. It's the process of becoming whole. It means trading the fragile pride of perfection for the resilient strength of completeness. It means being brave enough to acknowledge the totality of who you are, the light and the dark. For the highly intelligent person who spent a lifetime feeling different, this journey offers a profound homecoming. It's a return to the fullness of your own humanity. It won't make life simpler, but it will make it real. You will no longer be a brilliant mind haunted by a ghost. You will be a whole person, at peace with the shadow that follows you, not as a threat, but as a faithful companion on the path to a deeper and more meaningful life.